To Charlotte Marie Davis, daughter of my dear friend Ruby Davis, I leave the entirety of my estate, all properties, financial assets, and controlling interest in Hartwell Industries, approximately $68 million. Charlotte's hands go numb. Can't feel the chair beneath her, can't breathe. Camila laughs, actually laughs. This is a joke, right? She's the help's daughter. Attorney James Anderson doesn't smile. Furthermore, Charlotte was legally adopted by Eleanor Hartwell 3 years ago. The paperwork was sealed for privacy, but it's valid. She is Mrs. Hartwell's daughter under Connecticut law. The room tilts. Charlotte looks at her mother in the back row. Ruby's crying. Not surprised. She knew. "This is fraud," Ethan says, standing. "We're contesting this." 2 security guards step forward, not the estate's regular staff. The lawyer's security. "You're welcome to try," James says calmly. Charlotte had almost skipped the will reading, told her mom she didn't belong there, sitting in Mrs. Hartwell's library with the actual family. But Ruby insisted, said Mrs. Hartwell's lawyer specifically requested her presence, something about recognizing the staff who'd served faithfully. So here she is, sitting in the back corner of the most beautiful room she's ever been in. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather-bound volumes that probably cost more than her car, Persian rugs that smell like old money and furniture polish. The August sunlight streams through tall windows, making everything look golden, untouchable. Camila and Ethan sit front row. Camila in a red dress that probably cost 3 months of Charlotte's rent, designer bag, perfectly styled hair. Ethan beside her in a beige suit, arm draped over her shoulders like he owns her. They're whispering, laughing quietly, already spending money they don't have yet. Charlotte's wearing her best dress, a simple navy thing from Target, clean, pressed, still obviously cheap compared to everyone else here. She can feel the difference in the fabric, the way it sits on her body versus how Camila's dress drapes like it was painted on. Her mother sits 2 rows ahead. Ruby Davis, 55 years old, wearing her church clothes, the good black dress she saves for funerals and important occasions. Her hands are folded in her lap, perfectly still. Charlotte knows that stillness, her mom's way of holding emotions inside. James Anderson sits at the head of the massive mahogany desk, Mrs. Hartwell's lawyer for the past 40 years. He'd been at the house countless times, always kind to Charlotte when she'd visit her mom at work, always treated Ruby with respect instead of the dismissiveness most wealthy people showed their staff. "Thank you all for coming," James begins. His voice is steady, professional. But Charlotte catches something when he glances at her. Recognition, maybe, like he's about to watch something he's been waiting for. The reading starts with small things. Mrs. Hartwell's jewelry to various cousins, her china collection to a niece in Boston, $10,000 to the gardener who'd maintained the grounds for 30 years, $5,000 to the cook. Camila shifts in her seat, bored. These pittances don't matter. She's waiting for the real announcement. Charlotte zones out, thinks about the double shift she's working tomorrow. Morning at the diner, afternoon cleaning houses, 60 hours this week. Still won't be enough to cover her mom's medical bills from last year's surgery. The debt sits on her like a weight she can't shift. "Now we come to the primary estate," James says. The room goes quiet. Charlotte refocuses. This is the part where Camila gets everything. Then Charlotte and her mom can leave, go back to their apartment above the dry cleaner, their real life. Eleanor Hartwell's remaining assets include this property, the Hartwell estate in Greenwich, the Manhattan penthouse, investment portfolios, real estate holdings, and controlling interest in Hartwell Industries. James pauses. The total value is approximately $68 million. Ethan squeezes Camila's shoulder. She's smiling, victorious. "These assets," James continues, looking directly at Charlotte now, are left in their entirety to Charlotte Marie Davis. Time stops. Charlotte's brain can't process the words. They don't make sense, like he's speaking another language. Camila laughs. That's the first sound Charlotte hears clearly. High, sharp, disbelieving. "I'm sorry, what?" "Charlotte Marie Davis inherits the full estate," James repeats. "That's insane." Camila stands. She's not even family. She's the housekeeper's daughter. She has absolutely no legal right. Actually, James says, pulling out another document, Eleanor Hartwell legally adopted Charlotte 3 years ago. The adoption was finalized and sealed for privacy reasons, but the paperwork is valid under Connecticut law. Charlotte is Mrs. Hartwell's daughter. Charlotte can't breathe, can't think. Adopted? 3 years ago? She looks at her mother. Ruby's face is wet with tears, but she's not surprised. She knew. All this time she knew. This is fraud, Ethan says. His voice has an edge now, anger replacing smugness. Undue influence. She manipulated an old woman. Mrs. Hartwell was examined by 3 independent physicians in the year before her death, James interrupts. All confirmed her mental competence. She also left video testimony explaining her reasoning should the will be contested. Would you like to view it now? Silence. Charlotte's hands are shaking. She grips the arms of her chair. The room feels too hot, too bright. Everyone's looking at her. Why? The word comes out barely a whisper. She clears her throat, tries again. Why would she do this? James's expression softens. She left you a letter. I can read it now. Or give it to you privately. Now? Charlotte doesn't know why she says it, just knows she needs to understand. James opens an envelope. Charlotte recognizes Mrs. Hartwell's handwriting on the outside. Neat, elegant, old-fashioned cursive. My dear Charlotte, James reads, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you in person, but I was afraid of how you'd react. Afraid you'd refuse or feel obligated. Charlotte's throat tightens. I met you when you were 16. You came to help your mother clean after we hosted a charity gala. I was in my study, couldn't sleep. You knocked on the door, asked if I needed anything before you left. We talked for 2 hours about books, about life, about dreams you were too practical to chase because your family needed you to work. Charlotte remembers that night. How kind Mrs. Hartwell had been, how she'd actually listened instead of looking through Charlotte like she was furniture. You came back every week after that, James continues reading, not for money, not for favors, because you enjoyed our conversations, because you saw me as a person, not a bank account. Over 12 years, you became my dearest friend, the daughter I never had. Camila makes a disgusted sound. She's lying. This is... Let him finish, Ruby says. Her voice cuts through the room, quiet but firm. James nods, continues. 3 years ago, when I learned I had cancer, I made a decision. I spoke with your mother, asked her permission to legally make you my daughter. She cried, said you'd been mine in every way that mattered for years already. Charlotte looks at her mom again. Ruby's watching her with so much love it hurts. The adoption was sealed, James reads, because I didn't want to burden you, didn't want you to feel obligated to visit me out of duty instead of choice. You never knew you were my heir. You came to see me because you cared. That's why you deserve everything. Charlotte's vision blurs. Camila will contest this, the letter continues. She's always believed money was owed to her simply for existing. She's never understood that wealth is a responsibility, not a right. You understand. You've worked for everything you have. You know the value of $1 because you've earned each one. The words cut through Charlotte's shock. Mrs. Hartwell knew exactly what would happen. I've left instructions for James, the letter concludes. Legal protections, evidence to counter any claims of undue influence. But Charlotte, if this becomes too much, you can walk away. Refuse the inheritance. Return to your life. I'll understand. But I hope you'll stay. I hope you'll take what I've built and do something good with it. You have a gift for seeing people, for understanding what really matters. Use it. Make me proud. All my love, Eleanor. James folds the letter carefully, sets it on the desk. Charlotte can't speak, can't move. Her whole life just changed. Everything she thought she knew about herself, about her place in the world, just shattered. This is bullshit, Ethan says. We're contesting. She's nobody. She doesn't deserve... I was there. Ruby stands. Her voice is stronger than Charlotte's ever heard it. I was there for every conversation, every late night in the library, every Sunday afternoon when Charlotte brought groceries and stayed for tea. Mrs. Hartwell loved my daughter, really loved her. Not because of what she could get, because of who Charlotte is. You're the help, Camila spits. You don't get a vote. No, James says, but I do. And I'm telling you that this will is ironclad. Mrs. Hartwell spent 3 years preparing for exactly this reaction. She documented everything, recorded conversations, saved letters, built a legal fortress around Charlotte's inheritance. He pulls out another folder. Furthermore, she left funds specifically designated for defending this will in court. If you contest, Ms. Hartwell, you'll be fighting an opponent with unlimited resources and a mountain of evidence. Camilla's face goes red. She's taking what's mine. It was never yours, James says simply. Mrs. Hartwell made that very clear in her video testimony. She specifically states that you visited her 4 times in the last 5 years, always asking for money, never asking how she was. The room goes silent. Charlotte finds her voice. I don't know what to do. You don't have to decide anything today, James says gently. Take time, process this. The estate will remain in trust until you're ready. She can't just, Camila starts. Yes, she can, James stands. This meeting is concluded. Ms. Davis, Charlotte, my office will contact you tomorrow to discuss next steps. Everyone else, please exit the property. As of now, you're trespassing. Security moves forward, not threatening, just present. Camila grabs her bag. Ethan's jaw is tight. They head for the door. Camila stops, turns, looks at Charlotte with pure hatred. You think you've won. You haven't. We'll destroy you. Then she's gone. The library empties, until it's just Charlotte, her mother, and James. Ruby crosses the room, sits beside Charlotte, takes her hand. Mama? Charlotte's voice cracks. Did you know all of it? Yeah, baby, I knew. Why didn't you tell me? Because Eleanor asked me not to. She wanted you to love her for the right reasons, not because she was leaving you money. Ruby squeezes her hand. But I watched it happen. Watched you become her daughter. Watched her become the mother I couldn't always be. Charlotte starts crying then. Real tears. Grief for the woman she lost. Confusion about everything that's changed. Fear about what comes next. Her mother holds her, like she did when Charlotte was small, before the world got complicated. What do I do? Charlotte whispers. You take what she gave you, Ruby says, and you use it the way she would have wanted, to help people, to do good, to prove them all wrong about who you are. Charlotte looks around the library, her library now. Books she can actually read instead of just dusting. A life she never imagined she could have. $68 million. She doesn't feel rich. She feels terrified. The first week, Charlotte couldn't sleep in the estate. Too big, too quiet, too much like a museum instead of a home. She stayed in her apartment above the dry cleaner, working her shifts at the diner like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. James called daily, gentle, patient, explaining trusts and taxes and legal structures she'd never heard of. Ruby sat beside her during the calls, translating lawyer speak into words that made sense. You don't have to do anything right away, James kept saying. The estate generates income through investments. You have time to figure out what you want. What she wanted was for Mrs. Hartwell to still be alive, to ask her why, to understand what she'd seen in a housekeeper's daughter that made her do this. The second week, Charlotte finally went back to the estate, not to claim it, just to walk through, to remember. The library still smelled like Mrs. Hartwell's lavender perfume, faint but present. Charlotte ran her fingers over the book spines, found the chair where she'd sat every Sunday for 12 years, talking about everything and nothing. She'd never thought those conversations were special, just 2 people who enjoyed each other's company. Mrs. Hartwell never acted like she was doing Charlotte a favor by talking to her. Never made her feel small or less than. They were just friends. Charlotte pulled out a book, Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, one of Mrs. Hartwell's favorites. A note fell out, Mrs. Hartwell's handwriting, for Charlotte, because you understand that worth has nothing to do with wealth. Charlotte sat on the floor and cried. She found notes in 17 other books, small messages, observations about their conversations, proof that those Sundays had mattered to Mrs. Hartwell too. In the study, Charlotte discovered files, her files, report cards from high school, her college acceptance letters, receipts for a scholarship she'd thought came from the university. It had come from Mrs. Hartwell, anonymously funding her education for 4 years. The woman had been helping her for over a decade. Charlotte just hadn't known. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Charlotte Davis? A woman's voice, sharp, professional. This is Patricia Kemp. I represent Camila Hartwell. We're filing a formal contest of Eleanor Hartwell's will. We'd like to discuss settlement before this gets ugly." Charlotte's stomach dropped. "Settlement? Ms. Hartwell is willing to offer you $2 million to relinquish your claim to the estate. That's more money than you'd see in 10 lifetimes. Take it. Walk away. Avoid a very public, very nasty legal battle." I need to talk to my lawyer." "You have 48 hours. After that, the offer expires and we pursue this aggressively. Trust me, Ms. Davis, you don't want your life examined in court. Every choice, every relationship, every mistake, all public record." The call ended. Charlotte's hands shook. She called James immediately. "Don't respond," he said. "They're trying to scare you. Mrs. Hartwell anticipated this. We're prepared." "What if they find something? What if I did something wrong without knowing—" "Charlotte." James's voice was calm, steady. "You've lived an honest life. There's nothing to find. This is a bluff." But doubt crept in anyway. Maybe she should take the money. $2 million was more than she'd ever dreamed of. She could pay off her mom's medical debt, buy a house, stop working herself to exhaustion. She could walk away from this fight. That night, Ruby made dinner in their tiny apartment kitchen, red beans and rice, cornbread, comfort food from Charlotte's childhood. "You thinking about taking their offer?" Ruby said, not a question. $2 million. "Mama! And you'd spend the rest of your life wondering if you gave up too easy." Charlotte pushed food around her plate. "What if they destroy me? What if I lose everything and look stupid for even trying?" Ruby set down her fork. "Baby, listen to me. Eleanor didn't leave you that money because you needed it. She left it because she trusted you with it, because she believed you'd do right by it. But I don't know how. I don't know anything about running a business or managing investments or—" "You'll learn. Same way you learned everything else. By trying. By asking for help. By not giving up when it gets hard." Charlotte's throat tightened. "What if I'm not good enough?" "You are." Ruby's voice was fierce. "You've always been good enough. That's the whole point, Charlotte. Eleanor saw what everyone else missed. How she saw you." The next morning, Charlotte called James. "Tell them no, I'm not settling." She heard him smile through the phone. "Good. I'll file our response today." 3 days later, the lawsuit hit the news. Heiress contests will, claims housekeeper's daughter manipulated dying woman. Charlotte's photo, pulled from her Facebook profile, appeared next to Camila's professional headshot. The contrast was deliberate, calculated. The comments were brutal. Gold digger, knew exactly what she was doing. Poor rich girl loses inheritance to scheming nobody. Charlotte stopped reading, but her co-workers at the diner didn't stop talking. "I saw the article," one of the line cooks said. "Not mean, just curious." "That true? You're inheriting millions?" "It's complicated." "Doesn't look complicated." "Looks like you hit the lottery." Charlotte wanted to explain that it wasn't like that she'd loved Mrs. Hartwell, that she never expected anything, but the words stuck in her throat. She finished her shift, went home, found reporters outside her apartment building. "Charlotte, is it true you manipulated Eleanor Hartwell? Did you know about the adoption? How does it feel to steal from the real family?" She pushed through, didn't answer, locked herself inside. Her phone buzzed, text from a number she didn't recognize. "You're going to regret this. Walk away while you still can." Then another. "We know about your boyfriend in college, the one who went to jail. Good luck explaining that." Charlotte's chest tightened. Tyler. She'd dated him sophomore year. Briefly. Didn't know he was dealing drugs until campus police arrested him. She'd broken up with him immediately, but she'd been questioned, cleared. It was nothing. They were going to make it something. Another text. "And your mom's bankruptcy, her gambling problem. This is going to get very public." Charlotte called her mother. "Mama, did you—" 20 years ago, Ruby said quietly. "After your daddy left, I got in trouble with scratch tickets, lost money we didn't have, filed bankruptcy to start over. I've been clean ever since." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed. Because it was my lowest point and I didn't want you to know." "They're going to use it. Say you taught me to take advantage of people." Ruby was quiet for a long moment. "Let them. Truth is truth. I made mistakes, paid for them, moved on. That doesn't change who you are." But Charlotte felt the walls closing in. every past mistake. Why, every connection to anyone who'd ever done anything wrong. All of it weaponized. James called that evening. "I need you to come to my office tomorrow. We need to prepare your deposition." "What's a deposition?" "They get to ask you questions under oath about your relationship with Mrs. Hartwell, your history, your intentions. It's recorded, can be used in court." Charlotte's stomach churned. "When?" "2 weeks. I know it's scary, but you'll be fine. Just tell the truth." The truth. Like that was simple. That weekend, Charlotte finally moved into the estate. Not because she wanted to, because reporters had found her apartment, because staying there meant dragging her neighbors into her mess. The estate had security, gates, privacy. Ruby helped her pack. They didn't have much. Clothes, books, a few photos. Charlotte's whole life fit in the back of her mom's old Honda. The house felt enormous with just the two of them. 23 rooms. Charlotte picked the smallest bedroom, the one that had probably been a servant's quarters originally. It felt right, appropriate. Her mother took the guest room near the kitchen, close to familiar territory. That first night in the estate, Charlotte walked the halls, found Mrs. Hartwell's bedroom, untouched since her death, the bed made, her reading glasses on the nightstand, a book marked with a note. For Charlotte, keep reading, keep growing, keep being exactly who you are. Charlotte sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed where Mrs. Hartwell had spent her final days, where Charlotte had visited every evening after work, reading aloud when Mrs. Hartwell got too weak to hold books herself. "I don't know what you saw in me," Charlotte whispered to the empty room. "I'm just me." Silence answered. But Charlotte felt something. Not Mrs. Hartwell's presence. She didn't believe in ghosts. Just the memory of her certainty. The way she'd looked at Charlotte like she was capable of anything. Charlotte made a decision then. Win or lose, she'd fight, not for the money, for Mrs. Hartwell's faith in her, for the woman who'd chosen her when no one else had. She'd prove Camila wrong, prove all of them wrong, or she'd go down trying. The next morning, Charlotte found something in the study. A business ledger, Mrs. Hartwell's handwriting, documenting charitable donations. Hundreds of thousands of dollars given to scholarships, medical funds, family assistance programs, all anonymous, all strategic, all helping people who needed it most. This was what Mrs. Hartwell had done with her wealth, not hoarded it, used it. Charlotte understood then. This wasn't about her deserving the money, it was about trust. Mrs. Hartwell trusted her to continue the work, to help people the way she'd been helped. That's why she couldn't walk away. 2 weeks later, Charlotte sat in a conference room facing Camila's lawyers, 3 of them, expensive suits, leather portfolios, recording equipment set up. Patricia Kemp led the questioning. "Ms. Davis, when did you first meet Eleanor Hartwell?" "When I was 16. My mom brought me to help clean after an event." "And you began a relationship with her then?" "We talked, became friends." "Friends?" Patricia's tone made it sound dirty. "A 16-year-old girl and an elderly wealthy woman. What did you talk about?" "Books, life, school, normal things." "Did she give you money?" Charlotte hesitated. "She paid for my college. I didn't know it was her until recently." "So she was giving you significant financial gifts for years." "They weren't gifts to me directly. The scholarship was anonymous." "But you benefited." "Yes." "Did you ask her for money?" "Never." "Did you suggest she adopt you?" "I didn't know about the adoption until the will reading." Patricia leaned forward. "Ms. Davis, isn't it true that you cultivated this relationship specifically to gain access to Mrs. Hartwell's wealth?" Charlotte's hands clenched under the table. "No. I loved her." "Love? How convenient." Patricia shuffled papers. "Let's discuss your financial situation. You work 2 jobs, significant debt. Your mother has a history of financial irresponsibility." "Objection," James cut in. "Ms. The Davis's mother is not on trial here." "It speaks to motive," Patricia countered. The deposition lasted 4 hours. Charlotte answered every question, told the truth, felt like every word was being twisted into evidence against her. When it ended, she was shaking. "You did well," James said in the elevator. "You were honest, calm. That matters." They made it sound like I tricked her, like I planned everything. That's their job. Our job is showing the truth, which we will. But Charlotte felt hollowed out, like they'd taken something from her. The purity of her relationship with Mrs. Hartwell made it transactional, ugly. That night she got a call from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Charlotte Davis?" A man's voice, unfamiliar. "Who's this?" "Someone who knows what Camila's really doing. Meet me tomorrow. I have information you need." "How do I know this isn't a trap?" "You don't, but if you want to win, you'll meet me anyway." He gave her an address, a coffee shop in Stamford, 2 o'clock, then hung up. Charlotte stared at her phone. This was stupid, dangerous, probably a setup to make her look worse. But what if it wasn't? What if someone actually wanted to help? Charlotte told James about the call. He didn't like it. Could be a journalist, could be someone working for Camila trying to catch you doing something questionable. Or it could be real. "Then let me send someone with you. An investigator, someone who can verify." "No." Charlotte surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. "If they wanted to talk to a lawyer, they would have called you. They called me. I'm going." James sighed. "At least let me have someone watch from a distance, please." She agreed to that. The coffee shop was busy when Charlotte arrived. Students with laptops, parents with strollers, normal people living normal lives while hers was falling apart in public. She ordered tea she wouldn't drink, sat by the window, waited. At 2:15, a man in his 40s approached, graying hair, expensive watch, tired eyes. "Charlotte Davis?" She nodded. He sat down without asking. "I'm Owen Harris. I worked with Eleanor for 30 years, financial advisor for Hartwell Industries." "Why are you helping me?" "Because Camila's been trying to destroy the company for 5 years. Eleanor knew it. That's part of why she left everything to you." Charlotte's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Owen pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. "But Camila's been embezzling, small amounts at first, then larger. She thought because she was family, no one would question her. Eleanor noticed 2 years ago, started documenting everything." Charlotte opened the folder. Bank statements, transfer records, emails with forged signatures. "Camila's taken almost $3 million from company accounts," Owen continued. "She used it to fund her lifestyle, the apartment in Manhattan, the cars, the shopping, Ethan's investment schemes that kept failing. Why didn't Mrs. Hartwell report her? She was dying. Didn't want to spend her final months in legal battles with her granddaughter. She thought maybe Camila would stop if she knew she wasn't getting the inheritance." Owen's jaw tightened. She didn't. 2 weeks before Eleanor died, Camila transferred another $500,000. Thought no one was watching. Charlotte's hands shook holding the papers. "Does James know about this?" Eleanor told him, but she didn't want to use it unless necessary. Didn't want her granddaughter going to prison. Owen leaned forward. "But you need to know what you're fighting. Camila's not just entitled. She's criminal. And she's desperate. Desperate people do dangerous things." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you're trying to do right by Eleanor's legacy, and because Camila threatened to fire me yesterday if I didn't testify against you in the trial. Said she'd make sure I never worked again." His smile was bitter. "I've spent 3 decades building Hartwell Industries. I'm not letting her destroy it." Charlotte studied him, trying to read if this was real or another trap. "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't." But Eleanor did. She left me a letter, too. Said if anything happened to her, I should help you. Said you'd need someone who understood the business." He pulled out another envelope. "This is for you." Charlotte recognized Mrs. Hartwell's handwriting again, her name on the front. She opened it carefully. "Dear Charlotte, if Owen is reading you this letter, things have gotten complicated. Trust him. He's one of the few people in my professional life who never saw me as a bank account. He'll help you navigate the business side of this inheritance, and he'll tell you the truth about Camila. Use the information wisely. With love, Eleanor." Charlotte folded the letter, looked at Owen. "What do you need from me?" "Permission to testify, to bring this evidence to James. To stop Camila before she destroys everything Eleanor built. Won't that make things worse, give her more reason to fight? She's already fighting. This just changes the battlefield." Owen's expression softened. "Eleanor believed in you. I'm choosing to do the same." Charlotte took the folder. "I'll give this to James today." Owen stood. One more thing. Be careful. Camilla's gotten increasingly erratic. She knows she's losing. Cornered animals bite. He left before Charlotte could respond. She sat there for another 20 minutes, processing. Then called James. I have something you need to see. James's reaction to the evidence was controlled, professional, but Charlotte saw the flash of vindication in his eyes. This changes everything, he said, spreading the documents across his conference table. Embezzlement, fraud. And this isn't just a will contest anymore. This is criminal. Mrs. Hartwell knew. She gave Owen permission to share this with me. She was protecting you, building your defense while also giving Camila one last chance to walk away. James looked up. We need to decide how to use this. Do we go nuclear, submit it all as evidence, or do we offer Camila an out? Charlotte thought about Mrs. Hartwell, her kindness even toward people who didn't deserve it, her belief in second chances. We offer her an out first, a settlement. She drops the will contest, pays back what she stole, and we don't pursue criminal charges. And if she refuses, then we show everyone exactly who she is. James drafted the settlement offer that afternoon. Charlotte signed it with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. 2 days later, Patricia Kemp called. You've got some nerve, she said, voice tight with fury. Threatening my client with false allegations. The allegations aren't false, James interrupted. He was on speaker in his office, Charlotte sitting across from him. We have bank records, emails, witness testimony. Your client has been systematically stealing from Hartwell Industries for 5 years. Silence. Then, we'll need to verify. Verify all you want. We have certified forensic accountants ready to testify. The evidence is solid. James's voice was calm, steady. Here's what we're offering. Ms. Hartwell drops the will contest immediately. She repays the embezzled funds over 5 years, 0 interest. We don't press criminal charges. She walks away with her freedom and what's left of her reputation. That's extortion. That's mercy. The offer expires in 48 hours. The call ended. Charlotte exhaled. You think she'll take it? I think she's smart enough to know she's beat, but pride makes people stupid. James leaned back in his chair. Either way, we win. If she settles, you get the estate without a trial. If she doesn't, we expose her in court and she faces criminal charges. I don't want her to go to prison. Even after everything she's done to you? Charlotte thought about it. The reporters, the depositions, the character assassination, the sleepless nights. Even then, Mrs. Hartwell wouldn't have wanted that. James smiled. You really are her daughter. That evening, Charlotte walked the estate grounds. Late summer was turning to fall. The air had that first hint of coolness. The gardens were still lush but starting to fade at the edges. Transition. And she found herself at the Rose Garden, Mrs. Hartwell's favorite spot. They'd sat here countless Sunday afternoons, Charlotte reading aloud while Mrs. Hartwell listened with her eyes closed, sun on her face. I miss you, Charlotte said to the empty garden. I wish you were here to tell me if I'm doing this right. A voice behind her. You are. Charlotte spun. Ruby stood on the path carrying 2 cups of tea. Mama, you scared me. Sorry, baby. Ruby handed her a cup, sat on the bench. But it's true. You're doing exactly what Eleanor would have wanted. How do you know? Because I watched you grow up together, watched her teach you to be strong without being cruel, to fight without losing yourself. That's what you're doing now. Charlotte sat beside her mother. They drank tea in comfortable silence. P.E., can I ask you something? Charlotte finally said. Always. When she asked to adopt me, were you hurt? Like she was trying to replace you? Ruby was quiet for a long moment. At first, maybe a little, but then I realized she wasn't trying to replace me. She was trying to give you what I couldn't. Security, opportunity, a future without struggle. She looked at Charlotte. That's what mothers do, baby. We give our children the best we can. Sometimes that means accepting help from someone who can give them more. You gave me everything that mattered. I gave you love. Eleanor gave you possibility. Both things you needed. Ruby squeezed her hand. I'm not hurt. I'm grateful. My daughter gets to have a life I only dreamed of for her. Charlotte leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. I'm scared, Mama. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not smart enough or strong enough? You are. You've always been. You just didn't know it because nobody told you. Ruby kissed her forehead. But Eleanor knew. And now you've got to believe it too. The 48 hours passed. No response from Camila's lawyers. Then, on hour 47, Patricia Kemp called. My client rejects your offer. She maintains that she did nothing wrong and that Mrs. Hartwell's will is invalid due to undue influence. We'll see you in court. James hung up, looked at Charlotte. She chose the hard way. What happens now? Now we file our counterclaim. Embezzlement, fraud. We expose everything. He pulled up documents on his computer. And I submit Owen's testimony and the financial records. By tomorrow afternoon, the media will have the full story. Charlotte's stomach churned. This is really happening. This is really happening. Are you ready? She thought about Mrs. Hartwell, about the faith she'd had in a 16-year-old nobody, about 12 years of Sunday afternoons and quiet conversations, and a love that asked for nothing in return. I'm ready. The counterclaim hit the news the next morning. Heiress accused of embezzling millions while grandmother fought cancer. The headlines shifted. Suddenly, Charlotte wasn't the villain. She was the protector of a legacy under attack. The comments changed too. Holy shit, she's been stealing from her own dying grandmother? This family's a mess. Poor Charlotte. Imagine inheriting this nightmare. Charlotte didn't read them, didn't want to trade one kind of public judgment for another. This wasn't about public opinion. It was about truth. Camila's response came that afternoon. A press conference outside her Manhattan apartment. She wore all black, dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, played the grieving granddaughter. These accusations are false and hurtful, she said, voice trembling. I loved my grandmother. I would never steal from her. This is a desperate attempt by Charlotte Davis to distract from her own manipulation of a vulnerable elderly woman. Ethan stood beside her, supportive, united front. We're confident the court will see through these lies, Camila continued, and we're moving forward with our contest because my grandmother deserves justice. The reporters ate it up. The narrative was too good. Dueling heiresses, accusations flying both ways, drama fit for television. Charlotte watched from the estate library, James beside her. She's good, James admitted. Knows how to play the victim. Does it matter? We have evidence. Evidence wins in court, but public opinion still matters. For the company, for your reputation, for your future. He looked at her. You could do a press conference. Tell your side. Charlotte shook her head. I'm not playing that game. Let the evidence speak. That night, Charlotte couldn't sleep. Walked the house again, found herself in Mrs. Hartwell's bedroom, sat in the reading chair by the window. Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. You made a mistake going after her. This gets ugly now. Then another. Watch your back. Accidents happen. Charlotte's hands went cold. She forwarded the text to James immediately. He called within minutes. I'm sending security to the estate tonight, and we're reporting this to the police. You think she'd actually hurt me? I think she's desperate and backed into a corner. I'm not taking chances with your safety. By morning, 2 security guards were stationed at the estate. Charlotte felt like a prisoner in her own home. Her home. The thought still felt foreign. Owen called that afternoon. The board wants to meet with you. What board? Hartwell Industries. You're the majority shareholder now. You have a seat on the board. They want to meet the new boss. Charlotte's throat went dry. I don't know anything about running a company. You don't have to. That's what the executives are for. You just need to show up. Let them see you're serious about protecting Eleanor's legacy. When? Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll be there with you. Charlotte called James. Can they do that? Make me attend board meetings? You own 51% of the company. Technically, you're in charge. He paused. This is good, Charlotte. It shows you're engaged, taking responsibility. The court will see that. So Charlotte found herself in a Manhattan boardroom the next morning. 12 executives staring at her like she was a grenade about to explode. She wore her best suit, still Target but clean and pressed, still obviously cheap compared to everyone else's designer labels. Owen introduced her. Everyone, this is Charlotte Davis, Mrs. Hartwell's heir and our new majority shareholder. Polite nods, assessing eyes. No one said what they were all thinking. What is a waitress doing running a company worth hundreds of millions? The meeting started. Financial reports, quarterly projections, industry trends. Charlotte understood maybe half of it, took notes on everything else. Then one of the executives, older man, expensive suit, addressed her directly. "Ms. Davis, what's your vision for the company going forward?" Charlotte froze. Vision? She didn't have a vision. She was just trying to survive. But then she thought about Mrs. Hartwell's charity ledgers, the anonymous donations, the scholarships, the way she'd used her wealth. "I want to continue what Mrs. Hartwell started," Charlotte said. "Running the company profitably, yes, but also using our resources to help people. Employee programs, community investment, ethical practices." She looked around the table. "I don't know the business side yet, but I know what matters, and I'm willing to learn the rest." Silence. Then Owen smiled. That's exactly what Eleanor would have said. The meeting continued. Charlotte stayed quiet, listened, learned. Afterward, Owen walked her to her car. "You did good in there. I felt like an idiot. You sounded like someone who knows what matters. That's more valuable than knowing quarterly earnings." He hesitated. "Can I give you some advice?" "Please." "Trust your instincts." Eleanor did. She saw something in you that made her believe you could handle this. Don't let imposter syndrome convince you she was wrong. Charlotte drove back to the estate feeling, not confident exactly, but less terrified. Like maybe she could grow into this, one day at a time. The trial date was set, 3 weeks away. Charlotte spent that time preparing, meetings with James, practice testimony, reviewing evidence, and slowly, quietly, learning to run a company worth more than she could comprehend. Her life had become surreal. Mornings in board meetings, afternoons in James's office preparing for trial, evenings walking the estate grounds with her mother, trying to feel like this could actually be home. The night before the trial, Charlotte couldn't sleep. She stood in the library at 3 a.m., surrounded by books and memories, found one more note, hidden in a volume of poetry. Mrs. Hartwell's handwriting. "Charlotte, by the time you read this, you'll be doubting yourself, wondering if you can do this. You can. Not because you're perfect, because you care. That's all I ever needed. That's all I ever wanted. Someone who would care about what I built instead of just taking from it. You are that person. Win or lose tomorrow, I'm proud of you. Forever, Eleanor." Charlotte held the note against her chest, cried until she had no tears left, then went to bed. Tomorrow she'd fight, for Mrs. Hartwell, for her mother, for herself, for the girl who'd been nobody and became somebody's daughter. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters. Charlotte stepped out of the car, James beside her, security clearing a path. Camera flashes, shouted questions, microphones thrust toward her face. "Charlotte, do you regret fighting for the inheritance? Is it true you're running Hartwell Industries now? What do you say to people who call you a gold digger?" James's hand on her elbow. "Steady. Don't respond. Keep walking." They pushed through. Charlotte kept her eyes forward. Didn't flinch, didn't hide. Inside the courtroom, Camila was already seated. Designer dress, perfect makeup, Ethan beside her, the hand on her knee. They looked like the picture of elegant grief. Charlotte in her Target suit looked exactly like what she was, working-class girl playing dress-up. The judge entered. Honorable Susan Morrison, 60s, sharp eyes, reputation for no-nonsense rulings. Charlotte's stomach churned. "We're here for the matter of Hartwell Estate," Judge Morrison said. "Ms. Camila Hartwell contests the will of Eleanor Hartwell on grounds of undue influence. Ms. Charlotte Davis defends the will as valid and has filed counterclaims of embezzlement and fraud against Ms. Camila Hartwell. Counselors, opening statements." Patricia Kemp stood, smooth, confident. "Your Honor, this case is about a vulnerable elderly woman manipulated by someone she trusted. Charlotte Davis systematically isolated Eleanor Hartwell from her family, nay, positioned herself as indispensable and influenced a sick, dying woman to leave her entire fortune to a virtual stranger. The adoption, sealed, secret, never discussed with family, was the final manipulation. We will show a pattern of calculated behavior designed to steal an inheritance." She sat down. James stood. "Your Honor, this case is actually quite simple. Eleanor Hartwell was a brilliant, independent woman who made careful, deliberate choices about her estate. She chose to leave her fortune to someone who loved her without agenda, someone who visited her not for money, but for conversation, someone who proved over 12 years that she valued the woman over the wealth. Meanwhile, the contestant, Ms. Camila Hartwell, embezzled nearly $3 million from her dying grandmother's company. Will prove not only that the will is valid, but that Ms. Camila Hartwell is the one who should be on trial. Judge Morrison's expression didn't change. Call your first witness, Ms. Kemp. Patricia called a distant cousin, a woman who'd visited Mrs. Hartwell twice in 10 years. She testified that Mrs. Hartwell had always intended for Camila to inherit, that Charlotte had been overly familiar with Mrs. Hartwell, that the adoption was clearly coerced. James cross-examined. How many times did you visit Mrs. Hartwell in the last 5 years of her life? Twice, maybe 3 times. And how many times did Charlotte Davis visit? I don't know exactly. According to the estate's security logs, Charlotte Davis visited 247 times in those 5 years, an average of once per week. Were you aware of that? No. But no further questions. The morning continued like that. Patricia parading witnesses who barely knew Mrs. Hartwell, James dismantling their credibility with documented facts. Then Patricia called Camila. She took the stand looking every inch the grieving granddaughter, tissue in hand, voice soft, broken. Tell us about your relationship with your grandmother, Patricia prompted. She raised me. My parents died when I was young. Grandmother was everything to me. Camila dabbed her eyes. We were so close. She told me I'd inherit, that I'd carry on the family legacy. When did Charlotte Davis enter the picture? About 12 years ago. She started coming around. I thought she was just helping her mother at first. But then she'd be there every week, talking to grandmother, spending hours with her. Camila's voice hardened. She was always very friendly. Too friendly. It made me uncomfortable. Did you voice these concerns? I tried, but grandmother said I was being paranoid. Said Charlotte was just a nice girl. Camila's hands clenched. I didn't know she was planning to steal everything. When did you learn about the adoption? At the will reading. I was shocked, devastated. My grandmother never mentioned it, never told family. It was done in secret because she knew we'd object. Why would you object? Because Charlotte isn't family. She's the housekeeper's daughter. She had no claim to our family's legacy. Camila looked directly at Charlotte. She manipulated a lonely, sick old woman, and she should be ashamed. The courtroom buzzed. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order. James stood for cross-examination. His expression was pleasant, calm. Charlotte recognized it, the look he got right before he destroyed someone's credibility. Ms. Hartwell, you testified that you and your grandmother were very close. Is that correct? Yes. How many times did you visit her in the year before her death? Camila hesitated. I don't remember exactly. Several times. James pulled out a document. According to the estate's visitor logs, you visited 4 times in the 12 months before her death. Is that accurate? I was busy. I had responsibilities. Yes, let's discuss those responsibilities. You worked for Hartwell Industries, correct? I was on the board, in a consultant role. A consultant role that paid you $200,000 per year? That's standard for board members. And you also had access to company accounts for business expenses? Camila's jaw tightened. For legitimate business purposes, yes. Let's look at some of those expenses. James projected bank records onto a screen. March 15th, transfer of $50,000 to your personal account. Memo line, consulting fee. But there's no corresponding contract or deliverable. Can you explain that? That was for work I did. What work specifically? I don't recall the exact project. Here's another. June 22nd, $75,000. Memo, marketing research. But Hartwell Industries' marketing director testified yesterday that no such research was commissioned. Where did that money go? Camila's face flushed. You're twisting things. I'm reading your own bank records, Ms. Hartwell. James's voice was still calm, deadly calm. Over 5 years? You transferred $2.8 million from company accounts to your personal accounts. Company funds your grandmother controlled, funds you had no authorization to access. That's not true. We have the records, certified by forensic accountants, authenticated by the bank. James stepped closer. You embezzled from your dying grandmother's company. And when she cut you out of the will, when she chose someone who actually cared about her instead of her money, you sued. You dragged Charlotte Davis through the mud to cover your own crimes. Objection. Patricia was on her feet. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Morrison said, but her eyes were on Camila, sharp, assessing. Let me ask you directly, James continued. Did you take money from Hartwell Industries without authorization? Camila's hands shook. Those were advances against my inheritance. Advances your grandmother never approved? She would have approved if I'd asked. But you didn't ask. You just took. James pulled out another document. This is an email from your grandmother to the company's CFO, dated 14 months before her death. Subject line: Unauthorized transfers. In it, Eleanor Hartwell explicitly states that she did not approve any transfers to you and demands they cease immediately. Were you aware of this email? Camila's face went white. No. Your grandmother knew you were stealing, and she documented it. She gave you chance after chance to stop. You didn't. So she protected her legacy the only way she could, by leaving it to someone she could trust. James returned to his table. No further questions. The courtroom was silent except for Camila's quiet crying. Judge Morrison called a recess. Charlotte exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. You destroyed her, Charlotte whispered to James in the hallway. I told the truth, that's all. He squeezed her shoulder. You're doing great. Stay strong. After the recess, James called his witnesses. Owen testified about the embezzlement, showed the paper trail, explained how Camila had systematically drained company accounts. Then, James called Ruby. Charlotte's mother took the stand, looking small but determined. She wore her church dress, the same one she'd worn to the will reading. Ms. Davis, how long did you work for Eleanor Hartwell? 32 years. Started when I was 23. And what was your relationship with her? Ruby smiled, soft and genuine. She was my employer, but also my friend. She was kind when a lot of wealthy people weren't. Treated me like a person, not just the help. When did your daughter Charlotte meet Mrs. Hartwell? Charlotte was 16. I brought her to work one night to help with a big event. Mrs. Hartwell and Charlotte got to talking. After that, Mrs. Hartwell asked if Charlotte could come back, not to work, just to visit. Did that concern you? At first, yeah. I didn't understand why this wealthy white woman wanted to spend time with my black daughter. I worried about, I don't know, lots of things. Ruby's voice wavered. But I watched them together, and I realized Mrs. Hartwell just liked Charlotte, liked her mind, her heart, the way she saw the world. Did Charlotte ever ask Mrs. Hartwell for money? Never. In fact, she refused it several times. Mrs. Hartwell tried to give her birthday gifts, graduation money. Charlotte would say thank you but give it back, said she couldn't accept money from a friend. When did you learn about the adoption? 3 years ago. Mrs. Hartwell called me, asked if we could talk privately. Ruby's eyes watered. She told me she was dying, that she wanted to make Charlotte her legal daughter, asked my permission. What did you say? I cried, because I knew what it meant. Mrs. Hartwell saw in my daughter what I'd always seen, someone special, someone worth investing in, and she wanted to protect her, give her opportunities I couldn't. Ruby looked at Charlotte. I said yes, because I knew it came from love, not manipulation. Did Charlotte know? No, we agreed not to tell her. Mrs. Hartwell didn't want Charlotte to feel obligated, didn't want their relationship to change. Patricia stood for cross-examination. Ms. Davis, isn't it true that you encouraged this relationship because you knew it would benefit your daughter financially? Ruby's jaw set. I encouraged it because my daughter was happy, because she'd found someone who saw her potential. Money had nothing to do with it. But you benefited too. Better hours, higher pay. Isn't that true? My pay never changed. Mrs. Hartwell gave me the same salary for 32 years. She didn't need to buy my cooperation. You expect us to believe you had no idea your daughter would inherit millions? I had no idea. Neither did Charlotte. We loved Eleanor. That was enough. Patricia tried several more angles. Ruby didn't budge, quiet dignity radiating from her. When she stepped down, Charlotte wanted to hug her, wanted to tell her how proud she was, but they were in court. had to maintain composure. The trial continued for 3 more days. Expert testimony about Mrs. Hartwell's mental state. Her doctor testifying she was competent until the end. The attorney who drafted the will confirming she understood exactly what she was doing. Then, James played Mrs. Hartwell's video testimony. The courtroom went still as Eleanor Hartwell appeared on screen. Thin, fragile, but eyes bright, mind sharp. My name is Eleanor Hartwell. I'm recording this testimony in sound mind and body, or as sound as body can be when you're dying of cancer. A wry smile. I'm making this recording because I know my granddaughter Camila will contest my will. I know she'll claim undue influence, and I want to make my intentions absolutely clear. Mrs. Hartwell adjusted her position. Charlotte recognized the room, her bedroom at the estate. This had been recorded weeks before she died. I'm leaving my entire estate to Charlotte Davis for several reasons. First, because I love her. She's been like a daughter to me for 12 years, better than a daughter. She chose to spend time with me when she had no obligation. She listened to me, challenged me, made my final years less lonely. Charlotte's throat tightened. Second, because she's earned it, not through manipulation, through genuine care, through showing up week after week, year after year, expecting nothing in return, through being the kind of person I'd want carrying on my legacy. Mrs. Hartwell's expression hardened. Third, because my granddaughter Camila has proven herself unworthy. She visits only when she needs money. She's been embezzling from my company. Yes, I know about that. I've documented everything. I gave her chances to stop. She didn't. The camera zoomed in slightly. Camila will say I was manipulated. I wasn't. I'm dying, but I'm not senile. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm choosing who gets my life's work. And I choose Charlotte. She'll do right by it. She'll help people. She'll build instead of take. Mrs. Hartwell looked directly at the camera. To anyone watching this in a courtroom, my will is valid. My mind is sound. My choice is final. Charlotte Davis is my daughter in every way that matters, and she deserves every penny I'm leaving her. The video ended. The courtroom was silent. Several people were crying, Charlotte among them. Judge Morrison called a recess. Charlotte couldn't move, just sat there, tears streaming down her face, seeing Mrs. Hartwell alive again, hearing her voice, feeling her certainty. Ruby appeared beside her, wrapped her in a hug. She loved you so much, baby. I know. I just miss her. I know. That evening, back at the estate, Charlotte walked to Mrs. Hartwell's bedroom, sat in the reading chair, felt her presence in a way she hadn't since the funeral. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me, for choosing me, for believing I could do this. The house was quiet, but Charlotte felt less alone than she had in weeks. The next morning, the trial resumed. Patricia gave her closing argument, painted Charlotte as a master manipulator, called the adoption suspicious, demanded the will be overturned. Then James stood. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Eleanor Hartwell was a brilliant woman who made a deliberate choice. She left her estate to someone who loved her for who she was, not what she had. Someone who proved, over 12 years, that she could be trusted. James walked to the evidence table, picked up the embezzlement records. Meanwhile, Camila Hartwell stole nearly $3 million from her dying grandmother's company. When Eleanor discovered it, she didn't call the police. She didn't prosecute. She simply wrote Camila out of the will. That's not punishment. That's protection. She protected her legacy from someone who'd proven they'd destroy it. He looked at Judge Morrison. This isn't a case about undue influence. It's about a woman making sure her life's work went to the right person. The evidence supports that. Eleanor Hartwell's own testimony supports that, and I ask that you uphold her final wishes. Judge Morrison took 2 days to deliberate, 2 days of Charlotte barely sleeping, barely eating, walking the estate grounds like a ghost. Then the call came. We have a verdict. Court reconvenes tomorrow at 9 a.m. Charlotte wore the same target suit, Ruby beside her, James steady and calm. The courtroom packed, media, spectators, people who'd followed every moment of the trial. Judge Morrison entered. Everyone stood. I've reviewed all evidence and testimony in this matter, she began. The question before this court is whether Eleanor Hartwell's will should be upheld or overturned based on claims of undue influence. Charlotte's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Having examined the evidence, I find no proof of undue influence. Eleanor Hartwell was of sound mind. She had independent legal counsel. She documented her reasoning extensively. Her video testimony is clear and compelling. Charlotte's breath caught. Furthermore, the evidence of embezzlement by Camila Hartwell is substantial and credible. It supports Eleanor Hartwell's decision to disinherit her granddaughter. Judge Morrison looked directly at Charlotte. The will stands. Charlotte Davis is the rightful heir to the Hartwell estate. This court upholds Eleanor Hartwell's final wishes. The gavel came down. Charlotte couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Ruby grabbed her hand. James smiled. It was over. She'd won. Charlotte walked out of the courthouse into camera flashes and shouted questions, but this time the questions were different. Charlotte, how does it feel to win? What are your plans for Hartwell Industries? Do you have a message for people who doubted you? James guided her to the microphones. They'd prepared a statement, short, simple. Charlotte's hands shook holding the paper. I want to thank Judge Morrison for upholding Mrs. Hartwell's wishes. This was never about money for me. It was about honoring a woman who showed me kindness when I had nothing to offer in return. Her voice wavered. Mrs. Hartwell believed I could do this. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving she was right. She didn't take questions, didn't need to. The statement was enough. But that night, alone in the estate library, Charlotte felt the weight of it all crash down. She'd won. The inheritance was hers. $68 million, a company, properties, responsibility she never asked for. And Mrs. Hartwell was still gone. Charlotte sat on the floor and cried. Not relief tears, grief, pure, raw grief that she'd been holding back for months. Through the will reading, the lawsuit, the trial. She'd been so focused on fighting that she hadn't let herself actually mourn. Now, with the fight over, the loss hit full force. Ruby found her there an hour later, sat beside her without a word, let her cry until there was nothing left. What do I do now, Mama? Charlotte finally whispered. You live. You build. You become who Eleanor always knew you could be. I don't know how. Nobody does at first, but you figure it out. One day at a time. The next morning brought news Charlotte wasn't prepared for. Camila had been arrested. The district attorney, armed with the evidence from the trial, filed criminal charges, embezzlement, fraud, wire fraud. She faced up to 15 years in prison. Charlotte's stomach turned when she saw the headlines. Disgraced heiress, arrested for stealing from dying grandmother. Ethan had vanished. Left Camila the moment the verdict came down. Rumors said he was already dating someone else, someone with money. Charlotte should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt sad. For the woman Camila could have been if she'd made different choices. For the family Mrs. Hartwell had wanted, but never really had. James called. The prosecutor wants to know if you'll provide a victim impact statement. It could affect Camila's sentencing. Charlotte thought about it, about everything Camila had done, the lies, the attacks, the attempt to destroy her reputation. Can I speak to her before sentencing? That's unusual, but I can arrange it. They met in a private room at the courthouse. Camila in an orange jumpsuit, no makeup, hair pulled back. She looked younger, smaller, defeated. Why are you here? Camila's voice was flat, empty. I don't know, Charlotte admitted. Maybe to understand. Why you fought so hard. Why you couldn't just let it go. Camila laughed bitterly. Because it was supposed to be mine. My whole life I was told I'd inherit, that I'd carry on the family name, the legacy. Then you showed up and took everything. I didn't take anything. Mrs. Hartwell chose because you manipulated her, made her think I didn't care. Camila's eyes filled with tears. I did care. I loved her. I didn't know how to show it. And she needed money and I took some, but I was going to pay it back. Were you? Charlotte asked quietly. Really? Camila looked away. I don't know. Maybe. I told myself I would. They sat in silence. What happens to you now? Charlotte finally asked. Prison. Probably 5 years if I plead out. My lawyer says I should take the deal. Camila's voice cracked. I threw away everything. For what? For money I didn't even get to keep? Charlotte felt something unexpected. Pity. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding that Camila was human, flawed, broken by her own choices. "I'm not going to give a victim impact statement," Charlotte said. "I'm not going to ask them to go easy on you or go hard. Whatever happens is between you and the court." "Why not? You could destroy me." "Because Mrs. Hartwell wouldn't want that. She was disappointed in you, hurt by you, but she didn't hate you. And she just couldn't trust you with her legacy." Charlotte stood. "Maybe you'll learn something from this, maybe you won't, but that's not my responsibility." She left before Camila could respond. Outside, James was waiting. "What did you say to her?" "Nothing that mattered. She's not my problem anymore." But that wasn't quite true. Camila would always be a reminder of what this inheritance cost: the family drama, the public spectacle, the loss of privacy. The weeks that followed were strange. Charlotte had to learn how to actually be wealthy, how to manage investments she didn't understand, how to run a company she'd only observed from the outside. Owen became her guide, patient, thorough. He taught her to read financial reports, to ask the right questions in board meetings, to trust her instincts about people even when she didn't understand the numbers. "Eleanor didn't run the company day to day," Owen explained during one of their sessions. "She hired good people and let them do their jobs, but she made the big decisions, set the vision. You can do the same. I barely graduated from community college. These people have MBAs from Harvard. And they know how to run the technical side. But you know something they don't: what matters. Eleanor taught you that. Use it." Charlotte started making changes, small at first. Employee assistance programs, better health care, paid family leave. The executives pushed back. Too expensive, not industry standard. "Make it work," Charlotte told them. "Find the budget. This is what we're doing." They found the budget. She also started the Eleanor Hartwell Scholarship Fund. Full rides for students from working-class families, preference given to children of service workers. Ruby helped her design the program. "Your daughter gets millions," one of the board members said, "and the first thing she does is give it away?" "Not giving it away," Charlotte corrected. "Investing it, in people who need it, the way someone once invested in me." The scholarship applications flooded in, hundreds, then thousands. Charlotte read every single one, cried over stories that sounded like her own: kids working multiple jobs, supporting families, dreaming of college but seeing no path. She funded 50 students the first year, planned to double it the next. The media coverage shifted again. Cinderella Harris uses fortune to help others. Working-class woman changes corporate culture. Charlotte became a symbol, a proof that money didn't have to corrupt, that someone from nothing could do something meaningful with wealth. But Charlotte didn't feel like a symbol. She felt tired, overwhelmed, constantly worried she was making mistakes that would cost people their jobs or destroy what Mrs. Hartwell built. Ruby watched her struggle. "You're trying to do everything at once, baby. Slow down. There's so much to do, so many people depending on me, and you'll burn out if you don't pace yourself. Eleanor built this over a lifetime. You don't have to fix everything in a year." Charlotte knew she was right, but knowing and doing were different things. One evening, 6 months after the trial, Charlotte was working late in the estate library when someone knocked on the door. A man stood there, 30s, jeans and a sweater, familiar in a way she couldn't place. "Charlotte Davis?" "Yes?" "I'm Marcus Thompson. I got the Hartwell Scholarship this year. I wanted to meet you, thank you in person." Charlotte blinked. "You didn't have to come all the way here." "Yeah, I did. You changed my life." His eyes were wet. "I'm a single dad, working construction. My daughter's 6. I've wanted to go to college since I was 18, but there was always something. Money, time, responsibility. Your scholarship gave me a chance I thought I'd never get." Charlotte's throat tightened. "What are you studying?" "Engineering. Always loved building things. Now maybe I can build something that lasts." He pulled out a photo, showed Charlotte a little girl with missing front teeth. "That's Lily. She drew you a picture to say thank you." The drawing was a crayon house, stick figures. To Charlotte, written in shaky letters. Charlotte took it with trembling hands. "This is... thank you." "No, thank you. You don't know what you did, what it means to have someone believe in people like us." After he left, Charlotte sat holding the drawing, crying again. But different tears, not grief, not fear, hope. She was doing something that mattered, something Mrs. Hartwell would be proud of. company continued to grow under Charlotte's guidance. Not because she was a brilliant businesswoman, she wasn't, but because she hired good people, listened to experts, and made decisions based on values instead of just profit. Employees noticed, morale improved, retention rates went up, the company culture shifted from cutthroat to collaborative. One board member, the same one who'd questioned the scholarship program, approached Charlotte after a meeting. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For assuming you'd destroy this company, for thinking someone without an MBA couldn't lead." He smiled. "You're doing something I've never seen in 40 years of business. You're making people actually want to work here. That's worth more than any quarterly earnings." Charlotte didn't know what to say, just nodded. But privately, she felt the weight of imposter syndrome lifting, slowly. She wasn't an imposter. She was learning, growing, becoming the leader Mrs. Hartwell had believed she could be. 9 months after the trial, Charlotte received a letter from Camila, forwarded through lawyers, brief, handwritten. "Charlotte, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know I'm sorry. For everything. For lying. For attacking you. For not seeing what grandmother saw in you. Prison is teaching me things I should have learned years ago. About consequences, about character, about what actually matters. You're doing good things with the company. I see the news. I'm glad it went to someone who cares. Maybe someday I'll be someone who cares too. But probably not. I'm still too bitter, too broken. Anyway, this isn't asking for anything, just saying what I should have said before. I was wrong. You deserved it. And grandmother chose right." Charlotte folded the letter carefully, showed it to Ruby. "You gonna write back?" her mother asked. "I don't know. What would I even say?" "Maybe nothing. Maybe that's okay." Charlotte never wrote back, but she kept the letter. The proof that people could change, or at least recognize they should. A year after the trial, Charlotte stood in the estate garden. Spring again. The roses blooming like they had for decades under Mrs. Hartwell's care. Ruby had hired a gardener to maintain them. Charlotte tried to help, but she killed more plants than she saved. "You've got to be patient with them," the gardener said. "Roses take time, like everything else worth doing." Charlotte thought about the year she'd survived, the trial, the learning curve, the mistakes, the small victories. She'd nearly quit a dozen times, nearly walked away when it got too hard. But she hadn't. She'd stayed, built, grown. The company was thriving. The scholarship program was expanding. Employees had better benefits. The estate was becoming a home instead of a museum. And Charlotte, quiet. Nobody Charlotte from the apartment above the dry cleaner was becoming someone Mrs. Hartwell would be proud of. Not because she was perfect, because she tried, because she cared, because she remembered where she came from and used her privilege to help people still there. Her phone buzzed. Owen. "Charlotte, we've got a situation. The Manchester acquisition. The board split on whether to pursue it. We need your vote." A year ago, that call would have terrified her. Now, she just said, "Send me the files. I'll review and call you back." She could do this. She was doing this. And somewhere, Charlotte liked to think, Mrs. Hartwell was watching, proud of the daughter she'd chosen, the legacy she'd protected. The girl who'd been nobody had become somebody after all, not because of money, because of who she chose to be with it. 2 years after the trial, Charlotte stood in the newly renovated community center in her old neighborhood. The building that used to be a shuttered factory now held classrooms, computer labs, a library, and a workforce training center. All funded by the Hartwell Foundation, Charlotte's latest project. Ruby stood beside her as they cut the ribbon. Local families filled the space, kids running around, parents asking about the free GED programs, job seekers lining up for the career counseling services. This was what Mrs. Hartwell's money could do. Not just sit in accounts growing interest, actually change lives. "You did good, baby," Ruby whispered. "We did good," Charlotte corrected, because Ruby ran the foundation now, retired from housekeeping to manage the charitable work full-time. She was good at it, knew the community. Dee understood what people needed, didn't let bureaucracy get in the way of helping. After the ceremony, Charlotte drove back to the estate. It finally felt like home. She'd redecorated, kept Mrs. Hartwell's library exactly as it was, but made the rest of the house hers. Warm colors, comfortable furniture, photos of her family alongside the Hartwell family portraits. She'd learned to cook in Mrs. Hartwell's kitchen, still burned things regularly, but she was trying. The huge dining table that used to intimidate her now hosted Sunday dinners. Ruby, Owen, James, scholarship recipients, company employees, anyone who needed a meal in good company. Charlotte had stopped eating alone. Mrs. Hartwell had shown her that wealth didn't have to mean isolation. It could mean community if you chose to build it. The doorbell rang. No, Charlotte wasn't expecting anyone. She opened it to find Marcus Thompson, the single dad she'd met 2 years ago. He was holding his daughter Lily's hand. Both were dressed up. "Marcus, is everything okay?" "Everything's great. I graduated today. Engineering degree. 4.0 GPA. His smile was huge. "I wanted you to be one of the first to know. Lily made you something." Lily stepped forward shyly, handed Charlotte a card, construction paper covered in glitter. Inside, in better handwriting than 2 years ago, "Thank you for believing in my daddy. Love, Lily." Charlotte's eyes burned. "This is beautiful. Thank you, sweetheart." "Daddy says you're the reason we get to have a better life," Lily said seriously. "Your daddy did the work," Charlotte told her. "I just opened a door. He walked through it." Marcus's voice was thick. "I got a job. Aerospace engineering firm in Hartford. Starts next month. More money than I ever thought I'd make. Benefits, stability." He wiped his eyes. "My daughter gets to grow up different than I did. Because you gave me a chance." After they left, Charlotte sat in the library holding Lily's card. This was why Mrs. Hartwell had done it, not to make Charlotte rich, to give her the power to do this, to change lives, to break cycles, to prove that people just needed opportunity, not judgment. The Hartwell Scholarship had grown. 200 students now. A $15 million endowment ensuring it would continue long after Charlotte was gone. Kids who'd never dreamed of college were becoming engineers, teachers, nurses, social workers, breaking poverty cycles, building futures. Charlotte had learned something Mrs. Hartwell knew all along. Wealth wasn't the money itself. It was what you did with it, how you used power, whether you lifted others up or kept them down. The company had grown too, under Charlotte's leadership, and yes, she could call it leadership now without feeling like a fraud. Hartwell Industries had expanded into sustainable technology, solar panels, green building materials, products that mattered instead of just made money. The board had resisted at first. "This isn't our market. We don't have expertise." "Then we hire people who do," Charlotte said. "We adapt. We grow. We do something that matters." They'd hired the experts, adapted, grown. And it turned out people wanted to buy from companies that cared about more than profit. Revenue was up 40%, stock price climbing, employees proud of the work they did. Charlotte had proven that you could do good and do well, that those things weren't opposites. One evening, Charlotte received an unexpected visitor, a woman in her 60s, elegant, carrying a leather folder. "Charlotte Davis?" "Yes?" "My name is Victoria Chen. I'm an attorney representing the Chen Family Trust." She smiled. "May I come in?" They sat in the library. Victoria opened her folder. "My family has been watching what you've done with the Hartwell estate, how you've run the company, the charitable work, the scholarships." Victoria pulled out documents. "We'd like to partner with you. The Chen Trust has significant resources. We're looking for someone to manage a new initiative, educational access for underprivileged communities across New England." Charlotte's breath caught. "You want me to manage it?" "We want you to lead it. Design it. Make it work. You've proven you can turn wealth into meaningful change. That's rare." I don't have formal training in nonprofit management. You have something better. You understand the people you're trying to help, because you were them." Victoria leaned forward. "Eleanor Hartwell saw something in you. We see it too." The partnership launched 6 months later. The Chen Hartwell Education Initiative. $50 million over 10 years, scholarships, community centers, job training, mentorship programs, all run by Charlotte with support from both families. Ruby managed day-to-day operations. Owen handled the financial side. James provided legal guidance. But Charlotte set the vision, made the final decisions, proved that the housekeeper's daughter could run something this big. 3 years after the trial, Charlotte was invited to speak at Yale, a lecture series on social entrepreneurship and wealth responsibility. She almost said no. Public speaking still terrified her, but Ruby convinced her. People need to hear your story, need to know it's possible. So Charlotte stood in front of 200 graduate students and told the truth. About growing up working class, about cleaning houses with her mother, about falling in love with a wealthy woman's library and never expecting anything in return. About inheriting a fortune she never asked for and learning to use it right. I'm not special, she told them. I'm just someone who got lucky, who had people believe in me when I couldn't believe in myself. My job now is to be that person for others, to open doors, and to say, you belong here, to people the world tells they don't. The students gave her a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens approached with questions. Several were scholarship recipients from working-class backgrounds, feeling out of place at an Ivy League school. Does it get easier? One asked, feeling like you belong? Charlotte smiled. Yeah, but not because the feeling goes away, because you realize belonging isn't about where you came from. It's about what you do when you get there. That night, back at the estate, Charlotte walked through the rooms, remembered the first time she'd been here at 16, how everything had seemed untouchable, how small she'd felt. Now this was her home. These rooms held her memories, her work, her purpose. She ended up in the library, Mrs. Hartwell's favorite spot, Charlotte's favorite spot now too. She pulled out the letters Mrs. Hartwell had left hidden in books, read them again, each one a reminder of the faith someone had placed in her, the responsibility that came with being chosen. You are worthy of this, one letter said. Not because you're perfect, because you're kind, because you see people. Never forget that's your superpower, the ability to recognize humanity in everyone. Charlotte had framed that letter, kept it on her desk at the foundation office, read it whenever she doubted herself, because she still doubted sometimes, still felt like the girl from the apartment above the dry cleaner playing dress-up in a world she didn't belong to. But then she'd see Marcus Thompson's daughter, or meet a new scholarship recipient, or watch the community center fill with families getting help. And she'd remember. She did belong. Yeah, because Mrs. Hartwell had made sure of it, had given her not just money, but permission to take up space, to lead, to matter. 4 years after the trial, Charlotte received news that Camila had been released from prison, served 3 years of her 5-year sentence, got out early for good behavior. Charlotte didn't reach out, didn't need to. That chapter was closed. But a week later, Camila showed up at the estate. Charlotte almost didn't let her in, but something, curiosity maybe, or closure, made her open the door. Camila looked different, older, tired, wearing jeans and a simple jacket, no designer labels, no makeup, just a woman who'd lost everything and was starting over. I don't want anything, Camila said immediately. I wanted to see what you did with it. With grandmother's legacy. Charlotte didn't invite her in, but she didn't close the door either. I'm running the company, doing charitable work, scholarships, community programs. Camila nodded slowly. I read about it. In prison, they let us have newspapers sometimes. She looked at the estate. I used to think this place was mine, that I deserved it just because of my last name. I was wrong. Yeah, you were. I'm working now, at a grocery store, stocking shelves, minimum wage. Camila's laugh was bitter. Grandmother would find that ironic, the granddaughter who thought she was too good for work actually working. It's honest work. It is, Camila met Charlotte's eyes. I'm not asking for forgiveness, or money, or anything. I just needed to say I'm sorry, face to face, not in a letter. You deserved better than what I did to you. Charlotte studied her, saw genuine remorse, but also the brokenness of someone who'd destroyed their own life, and knew it. I accept your apology, Charlotte said quietly. Not because we're friends. We're not. But because holding on to anger would just poison me. So yeah, apology accepted. Camila nodded, started to leave, stopped. For what it's worth, grandmother chose right. I see that now. You're doing what she would have wanted, what I could never have done. Then she was gone. Charlotte closed the door, felt something release in her chest. She'd never trust Camila, never have a relationship with her, but the hatred was gone. Just nothing. Indifference. That was its own kind of freedom. 5 years after the trial, Charlotte stood in the same library where her life had changed. But now she wasn't alone. The room was full of people, scholarship recipients who'd graduated, employees celebrating the company's best year ever, community members whose lives had been touched by the foundation's work. Ruby was there, laughing with Owen about something. James was talking to Marcus Thompson, who'd just been promoted to senior engineer. The gardener was showing Lily how to press flowers in a book. This was Mrs. Hartwell's real legacy. Not the money, not the estate, the people, the connections, the lives changed. Charlotte tapped her glass. The room quieted. 5 years ago, I stood in this room and learned I'd inherited everything you see around you. I was terrified. Felt like a fraud. Didn't think I could do it. She looked at Ruby, at the faces of people she'd helped. But a very wise woman once told me I was worthy. Not because I was perfect, but because I cared. Because I saw people. She gave me everything, not to make me rich, but to give me power to help others. Charlotte's voice wavered. I hope I've made her proud. I hope I've used what she gave me the right way. You have, Ruby called out. Others echoed her. Charlotte smiled. Then let's keep going. Because there's still work to do, still people to help, still lives to change. They raised their glasses, toasted to Eleanor Hartwell's memory, to second chances, to the proof that kindness mattered more than bloodlines, to the housekeeper's daughter who became an heiress and stayed herself anyway. 10 years after the trial, Charlotte sat in the estate garden with her own daughter, Ruby Eleanor Davis, named for the two women who'd made Charlotte's life possible. 3 years old, curious, kind, unaware that her mother had once been nobody. Mama, why is Nana's picture in the library? Ruby asked, pointing to the portrait of Eleanor Hartwell. Because this was her house. She gave it to me. And someday it'll be yours. Why? Charlotte smiled. Because she believed in me. And I'm going to teach you to believe in people too, to see them, to help them. That's what real wealth is, baby. Not money. People. Little Ruby nodded seriously, not really understanding but trusting her mother anyway. Charlotte looked out at the gardens, at the estate that had once intimidated her, at the life she'd built from an inheritance she never expected. Mrs. Hartwell had been right. Charlotte was worthy, not because she was perfect, because she'd stayed true to herself, because she'd used power to lift others instead of just herself. They thought she was nobody, but she'd always been somebody. She just needed someone to see it first, and now she spent every day making sure others were seen too. The housekeeper's daughter, the heiress, the woman who proved that where you started didn't determine where you'd end up. She owned everything now. But more importantly, she'd earned the right to.